On behalf of Santa Clara University's Career Center, thank you to students and the Bronco community who are tuning in for this LinkedIn Live event focused on the 2021 internship search process. My name is Rose Nakamoto, the director of the Career Center, and I'm thrilled to be joined by 4 fantastic guest speakers this morning who I'll introduce shortly. We have a great action-packed 45 minutes planned for you, which I'm going to kick off for us soon. Since we can't be together in person during this time, we are grateful to join you live today through LinkedIn. Given the unique challenges of this moment, for our students, I can imagine you may be filled with many questions, certainly as it relates to your future and career aspirations. Rest assured, there's support for you here at Santa Clara University. During today's event, please feel free to add questions in the comments box, first because we'd love to hear from you, and we'll try to answer as many questions as possible during the event. Career Center staff Amy Peterson and Jen Ferrari are there and have already said hello to you. Before we get started and I intro our esteemed guest speakers, I want to highlight Career Center's top resource picks for the winter quarter. Next slide, please. We know the pandemic has led to many challenges during this time. For students at Santa Clara, we want you to know that faculty and staff are in your corner, including the wonderful staff in the Career Center. What's immediately on the horizon for us are 2 major recruiting fairs next week with over 65 employers from a wide range of industries hiring all majors and all students. If you haven't already, students, register in just 2 easy steps. You can register for the fair on Handshake and you'll see a list of employers who are attending. You can select an employer group video session and a one-on-one video session with an employer to design your own personal fair schedule. So no more waiting in lines at a traditional career fair. Handshake has designed a really exciting virtual career fair experience for you. If you have any questions, please reach out to the Career Center team and we'll be happy to help you. And we want to make sure that you make the most of your fair experience. Next slide, please. So in the fall alone, we had over 1,400 employers post positions in Handshake for Santa Clara students. This was a 30% increase from what we saw in spring of 2020. Some of the top industries represented in these postings include the nonprofit sector, internet and software, healthcare, sports and leisure, human resources, government, education, and research. For a list of who's hiring students right now, Handshake is regularly updating this list of the top 500 companies hiring students right now. So this resource is actually linked from our homepage on our website. We encourage you to use this in your search. Next slide, please. So during this time, we encourage you to find ways to adapt and have more than just one plan and pursue multiple plans at once. Seek opportunities in organizations that are thriving and hiring. Some examples of those include the education and ed technology sectors, remote collaboration platforms, government at the local, federal, and state level, logistics, shipping, delivery services. Remember, in times of crisis and uncertainty, no job or opportunity is too small. Think positively and make the most of every experience. To help you navigate the job market during the pandemic, we've developed an SCU Career Boost, a new online career accelerator designed to help give you an edge in the pandemic for your search. Next slide. The Career Boost features include quick 5-minute video episodes on relevant career topics, challenges that you can complete to help you feel prepared for your search, as well as opportunities to connect with other staff and students. So you can access this resource. It's now available, our season 2, from our Career Center website. Next slide, please. Also, the Career Center team has developed a 2021 job and internship guide for our students. So this is a great way to understand what are the top 6 main strategies with embedded resources to help you maximize the virtual search process, because it does look quite different from what it looked like pre-pandemic. You can find the link to this on the CC homepage, and I'm sure our staff are actually also providing in the chat. Next slide, please. VMOC. We're so excited. Santa Clara Career Center has partnered with VMOC, which offers personalized resume feedback to you to help you powerfully tell the story, your story, to employers. How are you translating your Santa Clara experience into a resume? How are you developing strong accomplishment statements? This tool uses machine learning and integrates global recruiting best practices to give you actual live feedback on your resume 24/7. All you have to do is access this link from our homepage on the Career Center website to get started. Next slide. In the Career Center, we're working thoughtfully to bring as many employers as possible to you virtually. And we're doing so through Zoom, using Handshake's virtual career platform. And so we really encourage you to take advantage of these opportunities. And winter quarter alone, we're expecting over 100 employers to engage through a variety of portfolio of services and programs to connect with you. These are employers interested in hiring Broncos for internships and jobs. So students, be sure to stay tuned. Log into Handshake to view upcoming events and check out our events virtual calendar to see upcoming dates and registration information. And next slide, please. Today, I'm joined by talented members of the Career Center team. And before I introduce them, I want to make sure that you know that the Career Center is in your corner. We understand there are so many challenges of this unique moment, and our staff are here to support you. So you can do so at any time, students, by creating an appointment by logging into Handshake. You can also visit our website or a number of online resources and tools. And with that, if you could move to our final slide. I know you're really excited to meet our panel. I can't wait to introduce you to them. We have our talented team members from the Career Center, Melissa Thiriez and Priscilla Vallejo, as well as rock stars Abena, Boateng, and who's a current student, and Mariah Manzano, a recent graduate. Please join me in welcoming our panelists. And with that, I'll go ahead, we'll have them join us on the screen. And as they each pop in, we'll give them a chance to introduce themselves, starting with Melissa.
Hello, everyone. My name is Melissa Thiriez, and I'm part of the Employer Connections team working with our STEM and innovation industries. I'm very happy to be here today. My background is from K through 12 education, nonprofits, and working in startups. I'm going to pass it over to Priscilla.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Priscilla Vallejo. I am part of the Employer Connections team as well, and I oversee the business, entrepreneur, public, and social sectors. And I have a background in higher education, career services, and employer relations. I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Mariah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mariah Manzano. I graduated in 2020. I studied web design and engineering and had a focus in entrepreneurship. And nowadays, I'm a software engineer at Cisco and also the CEO of Opal, which is essentially a platform that connects college students with mentors. And now I'm going to pass it off to Abena.
Hello, everybody. My name is Abena Boateng. I just graduated from SCU this June as well with an undergrad degree in bioengineering. I'm currently pursuing my master's in engineering management and leadership. I'm also currently interning at both Thiriez and Opal, and in the fall, I'll be starting as an associate product manager at Uber.
That's wonderful. Welcome, panel. And actually, we're going to get started with our first question. Let's go ahead and dive in. And this first question is for you, Priscilla and Melissa. Are companies still hiring college students right now? And when should a student start applying for internships?
Absolutely. So companies are definitely still hiring college students for internships and jobs. Why? Because these organizations understand that they need to recruit and retain top talent for their futures. They need new talent with fresh ideas and a genuine connection to the experiences and trends of the present. College students also offer plenty of the skills that are required of employees right now, like digital fluency and adaptability. So for all of you college students listening, just living and adapting to school right now has provided you with valuable skills for your future workplace. And in regards to which go ahead.
We know that there have been industries that have been more affected than others, but there are organizations that are still hiring. And so we encourage you to keep checking your resources, whether it's LinkedIn, Handshake, or other sites that you used in the past to continue exploring those options. And like we mentioned on Handshake, you can find a list of the top 500 employers that are hiring during COVID-19.
And lastly, it's really going to be helpful to reframe how you're thinking about finding an internship. So sometimes it's an ace in the hole, but more likely it's a marathon that's going to require lots of methods of preparation in order to succeed. So some online applications, some virtual investigation and attendance at events, and really some networking. And you never know which effort is going to pay off, but it's most likely a combination of everything put together. So just try to be patient with yourself and with recruiters and stay persistent. Your search is most likely not going to conclude after 5 or 10 applications. So you're going to have to push through not hearing back and keep looking and keep applying. And this is really typical and it's absolutely normal. So for every success that you see on a friend's social media account, you aren't seeing the radio silence or even rejections that they might have experienced to land that role. So if you're not seeing the jobs or internships that are a fit for you at the time, just consider some other options as well, like externships or micro internships.
Internships and micro internships are a great way to add and build your resume. Employers offer externships, which are educational career learning opportunities that can serve as a pipeline towards future internships. It gives you an opportunity to learn more about the company, how to prepare for an internship, and the skills and experience that you can be gaining now to prepare for that internship. Typically, externships are 1 to 2 weeks, and they may offer curriculum and projects. Companies like Gap and Cornerstone Research have offered these in the past. And we always encourage students to begin with the end in mind as you're thinking about your career goals and your career trajectory. And micro internships are short-term paid professional assignments that can last anywhere between 5 to 40 hours. And you can find more information about these projects on the Parker Dewey website, which is on the Santa Clara Career Center homepage.
All right, Priscilla and Melissa, you've just starting to touch on this, and I want to dig in a little bit deeper. You've talked about some opportunities and scope of opportunities like externships, micro internships, the fact that the process will take longer to pace yourselves. But let's talk about where you should search and how to stand out online. So this question is for Melissa and Abena. Where should students be searching for opportunities right now? So that's the first part of the question. And then how can a student stand out online? And does attending online virtual events really give you a leg up?
Absolutely. Well, I'll take that first part of the question. So where should we start searching for opportunities right now? At Santa Clara University, we utilize Handshake, which is a really great platform that's used by a lot of other schools as well. It's really built for current students and alums to access the network at Santa Clara, at least, of over 10,000 jobs and internships. So Handshake is really built for college student network. So it won't have every organization out there, but it's a fantastic place to start to really focus on entry level and college level opportunities. So we can recommend a couple of ways to make it really useful to you, from filling out your profile and making that public to favoriting your top 5 companies that you'd like to work for. If you'd like some further tips on making the most out of your Handshake search, please be sure to check out one of our short videos on our Career Boost series. And I think they're going to drop the link in the chat there.
Thank you, Melissa. So in addition to Handshake, there are also other job platforms geared specifically towards students that may not be as well known, but could be just as effective. So these are Jumpstart and Ladder, which you should see in the comment section shortly. Next, you should be able to find opportunities within your professional organizations. So this is like SWE, NSBE, etc. They often coordinate with companies for recruitment events. There are also career fairs. So I've personally secured 2 internships this way. A research experience for undergrads during summer of 2019, and then my current internship at Cefi.
You can also join other Career Center events where we bring employers looking to recruit Broncos specifically. So this winter, we are hosting 4 pop-ins, which are casual networking and recruitment events, all virtual, focused on the following 4 areas: marketing, social justice, science and healthcare, and startups. So if you're interested in any of these industries, be sure to check Handshake or the Career Center website.
Thanks again, Melissa. Continuing on, there are also email communications. So this can be like a weekly bulletin from your school or department. So these are super important. This is actually how I got to learn about Opal, my other internship. So I used to never read these emails, and I probably missed out on a lot of other good opportunities. So I wanted to encourage all of you to pay attention to those emails. Then lastly, I'd recommend searching for opportunities by searching through LinkedIn content. So recruiters will usually post when applications go live. This not only connects you to the actual opportunity, but to the source, which is the recruiter. So this actually leads perfectly to the second question regarding how to stand out online. So my advice would be to make yourself more than just a number and establish connections. So there are several ways to do this. I'm just going to list a couple. The first way, make recruiters come to you. So this can be done through social media branding, posting content consistently, and thoughtfully engaging with others' contents. I personally don't use this approach. I use the second approach. The second is to target recruiters either directly or indirectly. So you can search for a recruiter on LinkedIn and then send them a concise message stating who you are, what opportunity you're interested in, and why you're a good fit. This shouldn't be more than 3 to 5 sentences. A tip for this, after you apply to a job on Handshake, you can see the job poster's contact information. So they'll just give you the name. I take that name and I use that to search in LinkedIn. So that's a tip there. To do this indirectly, you can contact someone in your network. And I just wanted to emphasize that networking equals building friendships. And I know that Mariah will touch more on this a little bit later. And then to answer the last question, do online events give you a leg up? I really think they do. So when attending these online events, they often give free game on what they are looking for, allowing you to make yourself more competitive.
Absolutely. Great tips, Abena. And really, attending online events that are offered by an organization that you're interested in can help build your interest that you've demonstrated, and get yourself on the radar with recruiters. I've definitely heard feedback from recruiters that students or interested parties that attend those events and actively engage. So that means keeping your camera on, asking really good questions, leave a great impression with recruiters, and also a great jumping off point. Say you're listening to someone really interesting at that organization, a great time to start networking with that person in the future.
Both you, Abena and Melissa, provided such great insight here. And actually, Abena, you're in such a good position to give this insight because you just secured an exciting opportunity at Uber once you graduate. So congratulations there. I want to actually dive into your experience, Abena, a little bit more as it relates to finding an opportunity. So let's talk about your search process and lessons learned for a second, especially for all the students and prospective families and students in the audience, and faculty and staff as well who have probably joined us. And before we jump into that question, I just want to invite our audience, if you haven't already, please start entering your questions that you have for our panel about the process, about any element of the internship search process. We're going to be getting to audience Q&A in a few more minutes, so would love to hear from you directly so we can answer some of your burning questions, which I'm sure you have. So Abena, let's talk about your experience. What lessons have you learned and what top recommendations do you have for students who are now starting to search for summer opportunities?
Thank you, Rose. Yeah, so I've learned a lot of lessons actually. So the first lesson, know your targeted industry / company's recruiting season. So I've definitely missed out on a lot of opportunities because I just didn't know the recruiting season. So a tip, I would follow the student recruitment pages, social media pages of these companies. And there are also even some mailing lists out there that will help to keep you in the loop. Lesson number 2, you are more ready and qualified than you think you are. Most skills are transferable, so just sell yourself. Lesson number 3, rejection equals redirection. And when you fail, F-A-I-L, you should treat it as your F first, A, attempt, I, in, and then L, learning. So keep that in mind. So I actually have a personal testimony. So I had 2 interviews for 2 different companies within the same week. I failed the first interview miserably. I allowed myself to be disappointed, but instead of sulking in that disappointment, I applied the lessons that I learned from that interview to my next interview, and I ended up securing my offer at Uber. And then lesson 4, only apply to positions you have a genuine interest in. So part of the reason why I didn't do too well in that first interview was because I was totally not interested in that space. So it was hard for me to come across as authentic. And then as far as recommendations, when it comes to your resume, I would tailor it using words from the job description. So literally take the words out of the job description and integrate it nicely within your resume. The ATS will pick up on this. B, don't use fancy templates. These are definitely not ATS friendly. I would recommend creating your resume in Word using just like regular symbols and characters. A good tip, if the ATS can pull the information from your resume into its template perfectly, you're on the right track. C, get as many eyes on your resume as possible, especially from people in your target industry. And I would also highly recommend VMUC. I've ran my resume through that and I've completely optimized it. So I would really recommend that. D, sell yourself. So I have an example. My official title at Cepheid is Regulatory Affairs Intern. but more specifically, I served as a project manager and lead within regulatory affairs. So to sell myself for an engineering management position, I put my title as project manager, regulatory affairs. So that's one way to sell yourself and market yourself better. And then lastly, I'd really recommend that you stay organized and keep track of the companies you apply to and your preparation process. So this can be done in Google Drive using Sheets and Docs, but I'd highly, highly, highly recommend Notion. So this is free for students, and it has a neat and user-friendly job applications template. So not only can you use it to track your job applications and the next steps, but it can also double as a place to prepare for your interviews when you hear back. So yeah, those are my lessons and recommendations.
Wow, Abena, there's such richness there to what you shared. And you actually told me about Notion, and it's an amazing experience. And it's sort of like a personal assistant. Think of it that way, to help you organize your search process. And also to normalize this idea of failure, right? I mean, this has got brought up before, that you see your peers, your friends, with their LinkedIn titles on social media. Everything looks glossy and perfect, but there's always a lot of challenges that everyone faces, and oftentimes, yes, failure, but you can learn from failure, and you can learn from the fact that it might take longer. And in this moment in time, the job search, internship search process is just going to take longer. So to be kind to yourself. I also love the plug, Abena, about emails. So because we can't be in person, it's a much more challenging to reach out to you all. And for students, we know there's a lot of demands on your time with your academics, for those of you juggling other responsibilities. And so please make sure you update your profile on Handshake, you've filled out your interests, so that you can get up-to-date information and see the emails coming through to us, encouraging you to take advantage of the resources. I mean, the fact that we have over 100 employers coming to engage and hire students at Santa Clara this winter is phenomenal in this current economy. So take advantage of that. Abena, I love all of the very specific nuggets of information you shared. We've got 2 more questions before we go into our audience Q&A. So please bring those questions to us. We can't wait to start getting to them. I can see them starting to come through now. This next question, though, is for Priscilla and Mariah. I'd love to talk a little bit about the preparation process. So how should a student really prepare before applying for internships and jobs? And that can include the interview process as well. But let's dig into that a little bit, because it looks different in this virtual space.
Yes, great question, Rose. 2 important things is to start your search early and be open-minded. So for freshmen and sophomores, think about, what are the skills and experience that I need to prepare for those future internships, whether you're a rising sophomore or a rising junior. And for juniors and seniors, you want to think of your time of, it's there, right? Junior, seniors, you want to start taking advantage of attending the events that we have in the Career Center, utilizing Handshakes to explore your options, because sometimes what employers do, they have different timelines. And so you may have to prepare an interview a year in advance or the semester before. So definitely start early so that you can have that advantage, and also be open-minded. You want to apply to multiple internships and create an action plan. And as you're doing that, you want to prepare your documents for your application, and consider doing a mock interview. We have Career Center staff that's ready to help you. They're in your corner, and they're here from the application process all the way to interviewing to negotiation. And so you want to make sure that you are best presented on your documents and in your interviews, especially in a virtual world. Things are looking a little different. And I also recommend students create an Excel sheet to document all the internships that you're applying to, the deadlines, follow-ups, so that you can do your next steps and know when to possibly hear back from employers. And I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Mariah to share a little more about her experience and how she's prepared.
Thanks, Priscilla. I definitely want to second keeping organized with opportunities. I will also second Abena's recommendation for Notion. I actually use Notion every day, even at work, to keep track of my tasks. So definitely recommend Notion. 2 other things I would like to add, though, in terms of preparing. The first is, actually, both of these are not necessarily unique to a virtual search, but it's a friendly reminder of how important these things are. So the first is to talk to employees who work at the company, and ideally in the job role you're interested in. I will dive more into networking later on in this chat. And the second thing is actually researching the company itself. So it's difficult to understand a company's culture, I think, if without actually working there, but numbers don't lie, reports don't lie. And for example, a few things that were super important to me in my job search were that companies had employee resource groups, which are essentially clubs within companies, and women on their executive boards. So doing this preliminary research will actually be very helpful in your sort of narrowing down which companies you're interested in and ultimately the interview process as well.
Yes, and as we mentioned earlier, explore your options. Santa Clara Career Center hosts a variety of events for you to connect with employers. Like we mentioned, we have our annual career fairs, we have our boutique events, career pop-ins, as well as our Handshake platform that gives students 24/7 access to our job board and also to check out the employers that are hosting events. So if you wake up at 2 in the morning, hey, check Handshake. You never know what internship or work opportunity you may come across. There's also LinkedIn, Google, and you can also visit the company's direct HR page to see and learn what opportunities they have for students. And remember, recruiters are recruiting throughout the year. Yes, there are deadlines, but you can always find something during the winter and the spring, but just be mindful of those deadlines.
Yes, one thing I do want to add to this point is to work smart, not hard. So there are different online communities created specifically for college students. I know Abena mentioned Ladder earlier. That's a great option. Some are actually industry or even job specific, and they provide weekly newsletters with job opportunities. So instead of always going to find the roles, let the roles come to you in some cases.
Yes. And one thing to remember, we're in a pandemic and we did not expect this. So this has shifted what the workforce looks like. So this means that it's important for our students to be flexible, be open-minded and creative in their job search, their internships, and connect with the Career Center and utilize our resources because we want to connect you to employers and to opportunities and help you create that plan so that you have as much segue into internships by creating an action plan and applying to multiple internship and work opportunities.
Yes. And one more topic I want to cover with this question is what if you cannot secure or find an internship? And I know it can be difficult if you haven't secured anything for summer yet. And I know it can be extra difficult if you're active on LinkedIn and you see everyone else's acceptance posts. But I do want to note that experience is experience. Actually, there's a Facebook recruiter who first told me that, and it kind of blew my mind. And what they meant by that is the value of projects. But if you don't get that job or internship you're hoping for, take the time you need to sulk because you're human and that will happen. And then get growing. And by growing, I mean your skill set, your network, whatever is important to you. And no one else owns your initiative, right? So if you don't have that, who will? So start a personal project, team up with friends, do something that exhibits the skills that you would have liked to learn in an internship. And there are tons of ways to grow and learn as a student. I would use your student card as much as possible. I'm saying this as an alum. Use your student card, please. A few honorable mentions for how to use that. The GitHub Student Developer Pack, which I discovered only like a week ago. It's not just for coders, even though it sounds like that. There's actually so many resources there for free. So I would look that up immediately. And all SCU students get LinkedIn Learning for free as well, which I also learned too late. So please use those resources. It's really up to you what you decide to fill your time with if you don't secure an internship. If you are a student who wants to prioritize learning and growing, just know there's a world of opportunities for you out there, whether that's at a big company, a startup, a nonprofit, or your own personal project.
Mariah and Melissa, and Priscilla, these are such great insights. And what I would say is a lot of students do just focus on the internship. They focus so clearly, and the internships are fantastic. But to your point, Mariah, there's a lot of other kinds of experiences you can build, your own project, research with the faculty, volunteer work, helping a family business. And the World Economic Forum has come out since the pandemic started to say that one of the most newer in-demand skills that employers are seeking is resiliency, response to change and ambiguity. So if you're a student and you had your internship canceled or you didn't secure an internship and you did your own project, or a part-time virtual job, how you reflect on that experience and convey the skills and experience you did build is equally as important to securing that internship at the organization of your dreams. So it's really all about how you make the most of this time and how you translate your ability to adapt, be resilient, and to communicate that as a skill set, because you're going to need that in the workforce. So I'm so glad that you brought that up, Mariah, and to think really openly and divergently about building experience. It doesn't just have to be through internships. And with that, we've had actually a couple of questions coming in about networking and the leveraging the Santa Clara Bronco ecosystem. And so, Mariah, this next question is for you. I want to dive a little bit deeper into the value of building relationships. And this is right in your wheelhouse, Mariah, with Opal, and would love for a chance for you to share a little bit more about what Opal is too. But let's talk about the role networking plays in the search process. How can students use their student card, as you said, Mariah, to be savvy in building relationships? And what advice do you wish you had known as a student? So lots to unpack here.
Lots to unpack, for sure. I love this topic because I would not be where I am today without my personal network. I think a lot of people would say the same. I've heard the line throughout college that it's all about who you know. And I feel like every day that's sort of proven true in my life, at least. But something I wish I knew sooner in regards to networking is that every relationship and interaction is significant. There are a few what I would consider very small interactions I had with people that grew to be extremely significant in my life. So keep that in mind when you have interactions with anyone. This can be, yes, obviously a recruiter. That's an obvious one where we're very mindful and really thinking about what we say and do. But think about that with, professors and peers and friends as well. The way that you act and the things that you contribute, or the way that you act and the things that you say actually contribute to your personal brand, which is essentially how others perceive you or how you want the world to perceive you. And I will say up front, and I know Abena mentioned this earlier, that authenticity or the lack thereof is very obvious. From my experiences, the best way to be authentic is to be curious and to ask a lot of questions. But if you sort of go in thinking this is a transactional conversation, it will be very obvious to the other person. But building relationships in general can happen in many different ways, actually. The big one that I do want to highlight for sure, especially in this climate, is to reach out to people on LinkedIn and be extremely intentional about it. And I know that's scary. I know meeting new people and networking is kind of horrifying. I don't think it does get easier with time for sure. And hopefully because it's virtual and it's a message, it's a little easier on you. But I actually used to use the LinkedIn alumni tool when I was an SCU student, and I'd reach out to people and I'd always start the message with like, hey, I'm a fellow Bronco, or I'm an SCU student. And when you make that connection, to people very clear when you reach out to them, it'll definitely get their attention. And this is sort of something at Opal we've realized with mentorship, is that if you establish that connection early on, people are much more willing to reach out or be willing to chat with you. So keep that in mind. And sort of an example of a message I would send to people, just strangers on LinkedIn, is, hey, I'm an SU student and aspiring product designer. I noticed you work as a product designer at Facebook. Do you have time on Monday or Wednesday afternoon to chat with me for 30 minutes about X? And your X, the more specific, the better, I think. I wouldn't say anything like pick your brain or chat about something super vague. The more specific you get, the more I think that person is willing to chat with you. So examples can be your journey through Facebook or how you got to Facebook, your interview process for Facebook, how you made your portfolio stand out. These are examples for product designers, but the more specific, the better. There's a few pieces in that question I do want to break down. First of all, making that immediate connection, like I mentioned before, and then being upfront of sort of what you're asking of them. Request a meeting, and I would strongly suggest offering some days or times that work, or offer like a Calendly link or a scheduling link. It's obviously Calendly was created because the back and forth of scheduling a meeting is never fun. So make it very, very easy on that person to just schedule a meeting with you. And people love to talk about themselves. So I have found a lot of luck in setting up these meetings. I hope you do too. During the meeting, ask a lot of questions. Again, I think that shows authenticity. And a few questions I would never ask in a coffee chat personally are, can I have a referral? And what should I do? As in, like, tell me what to do. First of all, if you immediately ask for a referral, it actually makes the conversation lose any authenticity that it had prior to you asking that. So it seems like that's what you wanted from the person all along. Even if that is true, which I realize it will be the case in many situations, I would recommend against asking that in your first interaction with someone. The second is that the best thing someone can do for you is share their own experiences. That being said, that does not mean that's the path that you have to choose for yourself. So use their lessons and experiences to shape your own path. I would not ask someone like, what should I do? Because they will just tell you what they did. And each human story is different. So appreciate your own story and choose your own path. After you meet with that person, I would keep 3 things in mind. The first, thank them. The second, ask them for 1 or 2 connections that could be helpful to you and the topic you discussed. This is actually a recent tip given to me, that when you meet with someone virtually, ask them for 2 more connections, and then you'll just grow exponentially. And the third thing is to follow up with them occasionally if you'd like to sustain that relationship. Building relationships is not about meeting someone for a coffee chat once. It's actually about meeting with someone once, and then meeting with them or catching them up occasionally or however frequently you see fit. There's actually a woman I met when she was a high schooler who is now at UCLA. She does a really good job with this. She updates me on her life about once a quarter without being prompted. But I love it. She asked me for input on something very bite-sized and reasonable for me to give input back on, and often recommends like a book or a podcast to me. It's great. I consider us lifelong connections, so it's awesome. I would recommend that. You can also build relationships with recruiters. Yes, even the ones that sent you rejection emails. You can build relationships with them, respond to them, connect with them on LinkedIn, be respectful of the final decision, ask for feedback, and reach out to them in the future if you want advice about a particular opportunity at their company. And Abena spoke about this a bit earlier about reaching out to recruiters in general. So please do that. A few more points I have. This may seem obvious, but like I mentioned before, build relationships with your friends and peers, professors, and staff. I luckily got the chance to work at the Career Center for my whole time at SCU, so I got to make great connections there. But I ended up recruiting my friends as co-founders, for instance, for Opal. So be very mindful about all the relationships in your life. Overall, making meaningful connections with people goes a very long way. People recognize authenticity and genuine curiosity. So I'd recommend being very, very intentional about reaching out to people whose journeys excite you and you want to learn more about. If neither of those are true, it's not going to be a fun conversation for either of you. And if you'd like to retain a connection, be mindful about reaching out to them at a reasonable frequency to give updates or ask for another coffee chat. From my experiences, if you have meaningful connections and brand yourself in a way that your professional development goals are very clear to your network, opportunities will actually come to you. Thank you.
Mariah, that was awesome. And I think, there's a lot of conversation about mentorship. And, I've heard students say, well, can I ask someone to be my mentor? And I think what you're just shaping the narrative and the way you're structuring how you build relationships, you don't actually have to explicitly ask someone to be your mentor. I think it can happen organically, as you said, as a student, if you're really intentional about who it is that you're reaching out to, do your research on them. What about their background excites you? Be really curious and inquisitive about who they are, and build a natural relationship and be specific about what you're asking. And don't be afraid. I think the fear factor and the fear of reaching out can be the biggest barrier. And what's the worst thing that can happen? If you reach out to 15 alums over the course of 6 months, you might hear back from half of them. That's great. The worst thing that can happen is that someone doesn't respond to your message. And that's okay. That's part of this process. Don't let that daunt you or stop you. We have a few more minutes, but Mariah, thank you so much for that great response. I think that building relationships is the currency for which sort of the job search process comes to life. So students take advantage, and the authenticity that you do that is awesome too. Thank you, Mariah. So a question from Justin. We got a couple of questions, one from a student athlete, one from a current student. How and when can you follow up from online submitted applications? So like just the follow-up process, like the frequency, how should you do that? When should you move on? Anything that you can share, maybe Abena and Mariah will jump in with your experiences here, would be great.
Said when do you recommend following up on a
submitted
application? Actually, I'm gonna hand this one over to Melissa if she doesn't mind, because I learned everything about following up with recruiters from her, and Amy as well. She's in the background, but yeah.
That is so sweet of you, Abena. I feel really excited that I got to work with you a little bit on this, but you really put in all the hard work for it. I think some of the ideas that we talked about and following up with recruiters is really just to kind of keep a good radar of like, where are you applying? It can get a little confusing if you aren't keeping track of it. You submit a couple applications one day and then you completely forget about them the next. So really try to stay organized and put some reminders on your calendar. For me, if it's not on my calendar and my reminders on my phone, man, it's not going to get done. So definitely set intentional reminders about checking in. I would probably recommend 1-2 weeks, especially given our really busy schedules. So many people are working from home and juggling multiple responsibilities. You don't want to like seem too impatient with everyone. So give it a week or two. It's always great just to follow up with people and say, thanks so much for taking the time to read my application. I submitted last week and really looking forward to hearing back from you. That way you're leaving it open-ended. You aren't demanding anything of them. You're just kind of pinging them again to say, hey, I submitted. Of course, if you did informational interviews with anyone along the way to get you there, maybe I wanted to get into Opal and I said, hey, Mariah, like, thanks so much for talking to me about the position, the internship that you're offering. It's been, I submitted my application a couple days ago and so excited to look forward to talking to someone about this opportunity. So again, just really trying to be authentic and appreciative of this opportunity to reach out and follow up with someone.
Anything else anyone else wants to add before I move on to, I think we have time for one more question. Okay, so this next question is coming from an SCU alum and current faculty member at Santa Clara, Megan Kress. So for students experiencing academic Zoom fatigue, this is for real. This is definitely because this is the only way we can interact with our world. How would you recommend keeping motivated for the virtual search process? And can virtual internships be as effective as in person? So anyone want to take a stab at that one?
I'll take a stab at it. So for the first part of the question, keeping motivation, I think it's important to write out your goals. So that's something that I do in Notion. I write out my goals. Also write out like how much time I'm going to commit to this process. That's one way. Another thing, I know like we have so many responsibilities, school, and whatnot. I personally, time management is so important. I try to time block my schedule and I allocate in my days like when I'm going to put time towards this search process. So that's one way. Yeah, that's one way to do that. Can virtual internships be as effective? I think they can be as effective. And one thing that I will say, I really do love the flexibility that virtual internships allow as well. But yeah, my experience, my internships have been very effective. So yeah.
And maybe I can ask just to add to that, Abena, the virtual internship, a critical part of an internship experience is sort of mentorship and goals that your manager can set with you. And so can you speak to that in the virtual environment, the relationship you had with your managers and sort of setting goals? How did that look virtually?
Yeah, so I have a really great relationship with my manager. Actually, I talk to him every day. And we do have weekly appointment that I go to, but I'm also able to schedule ad hoc appointments as well. So I've gotten a lot of attention from my manager. I don't feel like neglected at all, if that was a worry.
It might just look different building relationships virtually, right? So, it absolutely does look different, maintaining and building. I'm sorry, I think someone else was going to chime in there.
I was just going to add to this question, if that's okay.
Oh, please, Mariah.
Yes, I definitely think for internships in general, you get out what you put in. You're not hired as an intern to save the company, if that makes sense. You should use it as a learning experience and make as many connections as you can as possible. And my whole job at Cisco has been virtual so far. And so I'm very mindful about setting time aside to have one-on-one chats with coworkers, not about work. I think that's important too, because you're not in the office, right? So you sort of need to make this sort of fun chat time on your own. So that's kind of unique and different. And to go off what Abena said earlier about the first part of this question, in terms of staying motivated, I do want to hop on the goals train. If you don't have goals set in the day, it's hard to know what you need or want to accomplish, what your priorities are. And specifically SMART goals, which I learned from someone at the Sioka Center, actually at SCU. And SMART is specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. So if your goals meet all those standards and you know you need to finish something within some week, then you will likely be more motivated to make sure that gets done. So keep SMART goals in mind as well.
Oh, and adding to what Mariah just said, it's really important to have these goals be visible, because you can write down these SMART goals and have them in a file somewhere or in your notebook somewhere and then forget to look at it. So it's really important to have it in a place where you can literally see it every day, so it motivates you to keep going.
That's awesome. I feel like we could talk about this all day long, ladies. There's so much to unpack here, how much the process has shifted, and we know that there is a lot of competing demands on our students' time. And so I think being really thoughtful with yourself to set clear goals, to make sure you're allocating your energy and investing it in a number of different buckets, from building relationships to applying online to engaging in online events. And if there's a discernment process that needs to happen in terms of, I'm not even sure what I should be looking for, our staff can help you with that too, starting with an appointment with us to explore, how might I connect major with a career, or how might I explore occupations I'm not even sure what might be possible. So we're going to wrap up our time here. I want to first heartily thank our panel of speakers. This has been a wealth of information, a lot of great practical tips to help students in this moment. If you're a prospective student in the audience, if you're a parent, if you're a student, we hope this has been helpful for you. So thank you. Thank you, Mariah, Abena, Melissa, and Priscilla so much. We do understand this moment has brought many challenges. And in the Career Center, we care deeply about our Bronco community, and we'll continue to build resources to help students meet and find their place in the world, given how fast our world is changing. The Career Center team is excited to meet and work with you all in the days and weeks ahead. And we're wishing our students a great start to 2021. Thank you for joining us, and go Broncos.